The stars shimmered like scattered diamonds across the endless black sky. On the outer edge of the glittering Arender system, the royal palace of Queen Lysera rose like a crown over the city below. Its spires gleamed with silver and crystal, reflecting the light of a nearby sun. The palace was alive with anticipation, for today marked the return of Princess Valara, the queen's only child, from a journey that had lasted many cycles of the twin moons. Rumors had reached the palace of the princess's travels to distant human worlds, but no one truly knew what she would bring back or whom dot inside the throne room. Queen Lysera stood tall, her graceful figure illuminated by the soft glow of hovering light orbs. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the gathering of her court. Advisors and diplomats whispered in hushed tones, their alien forms shimmering with iridescent skin and elongated limbs, all displaying varying expressions of curiosity and concern. None dared to speak aloud, for the queen's presence silenced even the boldest among them. The anticipation grew as the palace's communication channels buzzed. Scouts reported the arrival of Valara's starship, sleek and unusual, its design different from any known in Arender. It hovered above the landing platform, thrusters glowing softly as the ship slowed. Servants and guards lined the corridors, their movements precise, almost mechanical, yet tinged with excitement. Queen Lysera felt a flutter of emotion she had not experienced in many cycles. Her daughter had been away for so long, learning, exploring, and studying the distant human civilizations. The human worlds were mysterious, unpredictable, and very different from their own orderly ways. Lysera had worried, as any parent might, about the dangers her daughter could face. Yet she trusted Valara's intelligence and courage, traits that had always set her apart. The starship's doors opened with a gentle hiss, and the first figure to step out was Princess Valara. She moved with her usual elegance, her long, silver-white hair trailing behind her like liquid moonlight. But behind her, a small figure emerged that made the gathered crowd freeze in shock. It was a human child, no more than 5 cycles old, standing uncertainly and holding the princess's hand. His hair was a soft brown, his eyes wide with curiosity and fear as he looked around the alien palace. His small frame was fragile compared to the towering aliens, yet there was a certain spark in his gaze, something unyielding, something brave. A gasp echoed through the throne room. Queen Lysera's own breath caught. She had expected tales of diplomacy, discoveries, perhaps new technology. She had not expected a human child to arrive at her palace. Shock, confusion, and a touch of fear rippled across the court. Questions swirled in the air like a storm. How had this happened? Was the child safe? Could he be trusted? Valara turned to face her mother, her expression calm but resolute. She knelt slightly to meet the child's gaze, speaking in the gentle language of their people. "This is Kale," she said simply. "He is under my protection. He is not a threat." Some advisors murmured among themselves, skepticism and disbelief evident in their voices. A few even questioned the wisdom of the queen allowing a human into the palace, citing customs, security, and the unpredictable nature of human behavior. But Queen Lysera raised a hand, signaling for silence. Her mind raced, but she kept her composure. "Tell me, Valara," the queen said, her voice steady yet curious. "How did you come to bring this child here?" Valara straightened, her posture confident. "Mother, I have studied the human worlds. I have observed their ways, their intelligence, and their creativity. Kale is special. He has shown remarkable understanding and quick thinking, qualities that are rare even among humans. I could not leave him behind." The queen studied Kale, who now looked up at her, unafraid. There was something in his gaze that caught her attention, not mere curiosity, but intelligence and courage, a spark that reminded her of her daughter when she was young. Slowly, Lysera felt a sense of cautious intrigue replace the initial shock, as Valara guided Kale toward the center of the throne room. The court could not help but notice the child's strange adaptability. Though the palace's gravity was slightly heavier than a human planet's, Kale balanced himself well. He glanced around, observing the alien architecture, the shimmering walls, and the hovering lights with fascination. He pointed occasionally, asking questions in a mixture of gestures and words he had learned from Valara. The queen's eldest advisor, a tall, angular alien named Thorin, spoke cautiously. Your Majesty, bringing a human into the royal palace is unprecedented. We do not know their customs or their tendencies. This could invite danger. Lysera's gaze shifted to her daughter, whose calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the court's unease. Thorin, she said softly but firmly, I trust Valara's judgment. Humans are different, yes, but different does not mean dangerous. Perhaps there is much we can learn from this child. Valara nodded. Mother, Kale has already adapted to some of our technologies. His approach is unique. He sees patterns and solutions in ways we do not. I believe he can teach us as much as we can teach him. The queen studied Kale for a long moment. His small hand reached out to touch one of the floating light orbs, and it hovered, responding to his gentle curiosity. The court murmured in amazement. Humans, it seemed, were capable of subtle interaction with alien technology, something even their most skilled engineers sometimes struggled to achieve. Lysera's mind began to see possibilities she had not considered before. Perhaps this child was not just a guest or a curiosity. Perhaps he represented a bridge to distant worlds, a symbol of collaboration and understanding that could extend far beyond their own system. The princess and the child were escorted to a private wing of the palace, where Valara began to explain the customs, language, and ways of their people to Kale. The child listened intently, his eyes wide with wonder, absorbing everything like a sponge. He mimicked gestures, repeated words, and asked questions that revealed an extraordinary capacity for learning. Meanwhile, the queen remained in the throne room, reflecting on what she had just witnessed. Her initial fear and doubt were giving way to a cautious excitement. The child was more than human. He was a potential ally, a mind that could see the universe differently, a being that might one day help unite disparate civilizations. Over the next few hours, the palace staff began to see Kel's remarkable abilities. He solved small puzzles with ease, adapted to the palace's gravity and technology, and even interacted respectfully with the alien staff, showing kindness and empathy that impressed the more open-minded courtiers. Even Thorin, who had been openly skeptical, could not deny the child's potential. Queen Lysera finally approached the private wing, her curiosity now fully piqued. Valara greeted her warmly, and Kale looked up, a shy smile breaking across his face. The queen knelt slightly, extending her hand to the child. He took it without hesitation, demonstrating trust and courage beyond his years. Kale, Lysera said softly, you have been brave to come so far from your home. You have my respect. Kale nodded, his small hand gripping hers firmly. In that moment, the queen realized something profound. This child, though human, carried within him the qualities that their people valued most: intelligence, adaptability, courage, and the willingness to learn. The palace, once filled with whispers of doubt and fear, began to shift slowly. The presence of Kale challenged old traditions, old prejudices, and old fears. Yet it also offered hope, a chance to learn, to grow, and to see the universe through new eyes. That night, as the twin moons rose over the palace, casting silver light across the crystal spires, Queen Lysera stood on a balcony overlooking the city. She thought of her daughter, who had returned with a human child, and the possibilities this unprecedented union could bring. Perhaps the universe was larger and more wondrous than they had ever imagined. Perhaps, with open minds and open hearts, their civilization could take its first step toward a new era of understanding. And somewhere within the palace, a small human child looked out at the stars, unaware of the magnitude of his rival, yet ready to face a world that had never seen one like him before. Kale awoke to a soft glow streaming through the tall windows of the palace wing. The walls shimmered faintly, reflecting colors he had never seen before. Everything around him was strange and beautiful, yet nothing frightened him. He remembered Princess Valara's gentle voice from the night before, teaching him to respect the palace and the people who lived there. Despite the alien surroundings, he felt a strange sense of safety. Valara entered the room quietly, carrying a tray with food that smelled unusual, yet delicious. Good morning, Kale, she said warmly. Today we will continue learning about our language and customs. Kel's small eyes lit up. I want to learn everything, he said. His voice, soft and human, sounded almost musical in the quiet palace. Valara smiled. And you will. But first, we must begin with understanding the rules of this place. Every gesture, every word has meaning. You must watch and listen carefully as Kel followed Valara through the palace corridors. He marveled at the glowing floors that reacted to his footsteps, and the walls that seemed to hum softly as he passed. His human eyes were wide with wonder, but he quickly noticed patterns in the movement of the palace, doors opening at certain times, light orbs adjusting to presence, even the way the gravity shifted slightly in different rooms. By the midday cycle, Kale had already begun to surprise the palace staff. He helped a servant retrieve a fallen scroll without touching it directly, mimicking the subtle telekinetic gestures Valara had shown him. The older servants whispered in awe. A human child had never displayed such awareness of their technology before. Word of Kel's abilities reached Queen Lysera. She had spent the morning in her private chambers, observing through the palace's surveillance rays. She watched him move with curiosity and confidence, noticing how his small hands seemed to interact intuitively with devices designed for much more experienced users. The Queen's sharp mind raced with possibilities. That evening, a meeting of the court was called. Advisors, generals, and scholars gathered in the Grand Council chamber, their forms reflecting in the polished floor. They discussed the child's presence with growing concern. Your Majesty, Thorin said, his angular features tense. While the child shows promise, he remains unpredictable. We cannot be certain of his intentions or his nature. He is human, not one of us. Lysera raised her hand, commanding silence. Thorin, I understand your concern, but consider what we have observed. He learns quickly, adapts, and respects our ways. These are qualities we value. Perhaps he is not a threat, but an opportunity. Another advisor, Lyria, a scholar with deep violet skin, added cautiously, Your Majesty, the child's adaptability is remarkable. He responds to our technology in ways even some of our brightest younglings cannot. There is something unique about him. Valara stood beside her mother, her voice calm but firm. Kale is special. I have seen him solve problems using reasoning that combines human creativity and observation. He does not simply follow instructions. He understands them and improves upon them. If we allow him to learn, he may contribute in ways none of us can yet imagine. The Queen nodded slowly, considering. Kel's presence challenged everything the court had believed about humans. Yet she could not deny what she had witnessed. Perhaps, in bringing him here, Valara had created something extraordinary. The following days were filled with lessons, observation, and exploration. Valara guided Kale through the palace's advanced technology. He learned to operate holographic maps, manipulate energy fields, and even assist with minor experiments in the palace laboratories. He asked questions that made the scholars pause and think in new ways. Kel's understanding of human intuition proved invaluable. While the aliens approached problems with logic and precision, Kale often suggested creative solutions that had not been considered. His ideas were simple yet effective, demonstrating that human thinking could complement alien intelligence. One afternoon, Valara took Kale to the palace gardens, a vast expanse of alien flora. The plants glowed softly, their colors shifting with the passage of time. Kale wandered among them, touching petals and leaves, asking questions about their properties. These plants communicate with each other through light patterns and chemical signals. Valara explained. They respond to energy and attention. Kel's brow furrowed in thought. Could they understand humans too? He asked if Valara smiled. They might, if we learn how to interact with them properly. Kel spent hours experimenting, observing, and testing small interactions with the plants. He noticed patterns others had overlooked and even suggested a new arrangement. That increased the garden's energy flow. Valara and the palace botanists were amazed. The child's perspective brought fresh insight to centuries of careful study. Not everyone in the court was convinced. Some still whispered about potential risks, about the unpredictability of humans. Kale overheard snippets of these conversations and felt a pang of sadness. Yet he did not falter. Instead, he focused on learning, proving every day that his human qualities, curiosity, empathy, creativity were strengths, not weaknesses. One evening, Queen Lysera invited Kale to the observation deck. From there, the city below sparkled like a field of stars, the alien architecture a testament to their civilization's achievements. She watched him, seeing how he marveled at the lights, how he asked questions about gravity, energy, and space travel. Kale, she said softly, you see the world differently, and that is valuable. We often follow patterns, relying on what we know, but you notice what we overlook. That is why I believe you can do great things here. Kale looked up at her, his eyes shining. I want to help, he said simply. I want to learn and make things better. Lysera smiled, a rare warmth in her gaze. Then you will. But remember, learning takes patience. The world here is very different from your home planet. You must understand it fully before trying to change it. Kale nodded. He understood that he was part of something bigger now, a bridge between worlds. A symbol of possibility. His human qualities, once ordinary on his home planet, were extraordinary here. He realized that he could contribute in ways no one had imagined. Days turned into cycles, and Kale's progress astonished everyone. He learned not only their language and technology, but also their customs and history. He participated in strategy sessions, helped improve laboratory processes, and even assisted in training programs for young alien scholars. His unique perspective allowed him to propose new methods, demonstrating that human ingenuity could complement alien intelligence. The court began to change its view of him. What had started as suspicion evolved into cautious admiration. Even Thorin, the advisor who had voiced the strongest doubts, began to nod thoughtfully at Kale's suggestions. Some whispered that the child might become one of the greatest minds the kingdom had ever known. Queen Lysera observed all this with a mixture of pride and fascination. Her daughter had chosen wisely. Valar had seen potential where others saw risk, and now the kingdom was beginning to see it too. Kale was no longer just a human child. He was a teacher, a problem solver, and a symbol of hope. One evening, Valara and Kale stood on the balcony, watching the twin moons rise. Kale's small hand rested on the railing, and he looked out at the distant stars with wonder. Do you think I can really help people here? He asked as Valara smiled. You already are helping, Kale. The way you see the world, the way you think, it is valuable. Never forget that. Your perspective is what makes you strong. Kale's heart swelled with determination. He was far from his home, yet he felt a sense of purpose he had never known. He realized that being human was not a limitation, it was a strength. He could teach, inspire, and change the world around him simply by being himself. The palace, once filled with whispers of doubt, now echoed with curiosity and cautious hope. Kale's presence challenged traditions, reshaped expectations, and opened the eyes of the court to new possibilities. The child who had arrived unsure and small now stood as a reminder of what could be achieved. When courage, curiosity, and open minds came together as the moons climbed higher, casting silver light across the palace, Kale knew that his journey had only just begun. He had come to an alien world, not merely as a visitor, but as someone who could make a difference. With Princess Valara's guidance and Queen Lysera's cautious trust, he was ready to learn, adapt, and help shape a future that none of them could have imagined. And somewhere deep inside, Kale felt a quiet excitement. The universe was vast, full of challenges and wonders, and he was finally part of something greater. He was ready to face it. Life in the palace had begun to settle into a rhythm. Kale learned, observed, and contributed, while the court gradually grew accustomed to his presence. Yet, far beyond the gleaming walls of the Arendar Palace, a shadow of uncertainty loomed. The neighboring system of Vorn had been watching Arendar closely. Rumors of a human child within the royal palace had reached their ears, and the leaders of Vorn viewed it as a sign of weakness. Vorn's fleet, sleek and imposing, moved silently through space, preparing to send envoys demanding explanations or, if necessary, to show force. Their species valued strength and uniformity above all, and they could not comprehend why a human would be allowed into one of the most advanced courts in the galaxy. Back in the palace, Kel's days were filled with learning and interaction. He had mastered much of the palace language and even began assisting in strategic planning exercises. His human intuition often revealed solutions that the alien advisors overlooked. During a simulation involving defense protocols, Kale suggested an adjustment to the energy shield array that amplified its efficiency, using methods derived from human physics concepts that the aliens had never applied. The result was an immediate improvement. Drawing applause and astonishment from the court, Princess Velara watched him with quiet pride. "Kale," she said one afternoon, "your mind sees connections that our ways sometimes overlook. That is your gift. Never doubt it." Kale's brown eyes sparkled. "I just try to think differently," he said. "I want to help." But the peaceful days were about to be tested. One morning, sensors detected unusual activity near the border of Arender's space. A fleet of ships, Vorinian in design, was approaching. Their trajectory was aggressive, their intentions unclear. The palace erupted into alert. Generals and advisors hurried to the council chamber, their voices rising in alarm. Queen Lysera stood at the head of the council table, her calm presence contrasting sharply with the tension around her. "Explain," she said, her tone steady but firm. Thorin, the eldest advisor, pointed to the holographic display. "Your Majesty, the Vorin fleet is approaching our borders. They are heavily armed and show no signs of communication. This could be a prelude to invasion or coercion." Velara stepped forward. "Mother, we cannot underestimate them, but I believe we have resources they cannot predict, and we may also have help they did not expect." Her eyes shifted toward Kel, who had been observing quietly. Kel's mind raced. He examined the fleet patterns, the approach angles, and the energy signatures. His human perspective allowed him to see possibilities that even the alien strategists missed. "If we adjust the energy shields to create overlapping zones," he suggested, "we can protect critical areas and confuse their sensors. It will slow them down and give us time to communicate." The generals exchanged skeptical glances. "A child suggests altering our primary defense systems?" one asked. Velara placed a hand on Kel's shoulder. "Listen. He has been learning our technology and understands it well. His plan is unconventional, but it may work." Reluctantly, the commanders followed Kel's instructions. The energy shields shimmered as they adjusted, forming a layered pattern that pulsed unpredictably. When the Vorinian fleet arrived, their sensors struggled to interpret the readings. Confusion rippled through their ranks. Slowing their advance, Queen Lysera watched with a mixture of concern and admiration. The human child was demonstrating ingenuity that even seasoned strategists could not match. Kale had transformed from a guest into a valuable asset, and perhaps even the kingdom's secret advantage. The Vorinian envoys finally attempted communication, their voices harsh and demanding. "Arender leadership," they said, "we have observed your recent actions. Explain the presence of a human in your palace or face consequences." Velar responded, her voice calm but assertive. "The child is under my protection. He is here to learn, not to threaten. If you wish to understand, we can speak peacefully. If you continue aggression, you risk conflict." The Vorinian leaders scoffed. "Peace is meaningless if weakness guides your decisions. Remove the human, or face our wrath." Kale, standing quietly beside Velara, realized the situation demanded more than just clever shields. He approached the communication console and began analyzing the Vorinian fleet's formation and weapon patterns. His human intuition quickly identified weak points and possible strategies for negotiation. "Mother," he said, "if we can show them a display of our defenses in a way that highlights our strength, but not hostility, they may reconsider. Humans use creativity and demonstration to communicate ideas. It might work here too." Queen Lysera nodded. "Proceed, Kale. Show us what you suggest, using the palace's advanced systems." Kale created a holographic display visible to the approaching fleet. It highlighted the energy shields, the precision of their defenses, and the readiness of the city's fleets. Yet the display was not threatening. It emphasized efficiency and intelligence, a clever demonstration of capability rather than aggression. The Vorinian commanders paused. Their communication channels buzzed with uncertainty. For the first time, they hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. Kel's strategy worked. By combining human creativity with alien technology, he had bought the palace crucial time and softened the possibility of immediate conflict. Valara smiled. See, Mother, even a human mind can solve problems in ways we sometimes overlook. He has saved us time to negotiate. Queen Lysera's pride was tempered with awe. She saw clearly that Kel's presence was more than symbolic. He was an example of human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability, qualities that could change the fate of the kingdom. Over the following cycles, Kale worked closely with the palace strategists, helping to develop new protocols for defense and communication. His ideas, though unconventional, often solved problems that had stumped the most experienced generals. The court began to shift in its perception of him. Where doubt once lingered, admiration now grew. Even Thorin, who had been the most skeptical, could not deny the child's abilities. He approached Kale one evening in the council chamber. "You are remarkable," he said quietly. "Your perspective is unlike anything we have seen. Perhaps we have underestimated humans all along." Kale smiled. "I just try to think differently," he said. "I want to help everyone, not just humans or aliens, but all who live here." Valara watched silently, a quiet smile on her face. She had always known that humans had potential, but seeing Kale in action confirmed it in ways she could never have anticipated. Her mother, Queen Lysera, continued to observe, silently acknowledging that her daughter had made the right choice. The Vorinian fleet, after several cycles of observation, finally withdrew, leaving the borders of Arendar unchallenged. The court erupted into celebration, but Kale remained humble. He understood that his actions had been important, but he had only done what came naturally: think, observe, and solve problems. That night, as the twin moons bathed the palace in silver light, Kale stood with Valara on the balcony. The city below sparkled like a field of stars, and the stars beyond reminded him of the vastness of the universe. "Kale," Valara said softly, "today you showed courage and intelligence beyond your years. You have made a difference here, not just with your mind, but with your heart." Kale looked out at the horizon, feeling a sense of accomplishment he had never known. "I just want to keep helping," he said simply. "I want to learn more and make this world better." Valara placed a hand on his shoulder. "And you will. But remember, this is only the beginning. Challenges will continue to come, and you will face them. But never forget what makes you strong: your curiosity, your courage, and your willingness to see the world differently." Queen Lysera joined them, her eyes reflecting pride and quiet wonder. "Kale, you have proven something extraordinary, that humans, though small and seemingly fragile, can hold power in their minds and hearts that rivals the greatest of our species. You are a reminder that greatness comes in many forms." Kale looked at her, feeling warmth and trust. He realized that he was no longer just a visitor or a curiosity. He was part of something larger: a kingdom, a family, and a future that he could help shape. The events of the day had tested him, but he had adapted and succeeded, showing that humanity's greatest strengths were creativity, courage, and empathy. The palace quieted under the twin moons, but within its walls, Kel's presence continued to inspire. The court, once wary of the human child, now looked at him with respect and admiration. He had shown that humans could solve problems, bridge differences, and contribute to the greater good. And as Kale gazed at the stars, he knew that the universe held endless challenges and opportunities. He had proven that even in an alien world, a human could make a difference, not by strength alone, but by intelligence, ingenuity, and heart. The stage was set for new adventures, new challenges, and new discoveries. Kel's journey had only begun, and the kingdom of Arendar would never be the same again. After the Vorinian fleet withdrew, the palace slowly returned to its usual rhythm, though a quiet tension lingered in the halls. Kel's presence had become widely recognized, and whispers of his ingenuity and courage spread among the court. No longer was he just the human child who had arrived unexpectedly. He was now seen as a symbol of possibility, a bridge between worlds. Yet Kale himself remained humble, focused on learning and helping wherever he could. Princess Valara continued her lessons, guiding Kale through the complex layers of alien culture. She taught him history, governance, science, and art, ensuring he understood not only technology but also the hearts and minds of those he might influence. Kale absorbed every word, asking questions that sometimes surprised even his teacher. He wanted to understand the people, not just their systems, for he knew that knowledge alone was not enough to create trust. One day, Valara led Kale to the palace's grand library, a vast chamber filled with floating scrolls and holographic records. The library contained knowledge spanning centuries, a record of the kingdom's achievements and failures. Kale's eyes widened as he scanned the endless shelves. "This is where we keep the stories of our people," Valara explained. "Every success, every challenge, every lesson learned." Kale moved carefully among the floating records, touching a few to bring their contents into view. He studied the battles, the inventions, the explorations. "Humans also have stories like this," he said. "We learn from them too. Maybe we can share what we know with each other." Valara smiled. "That is the first step, Kale. Understanding each other begins with stories. Knowledge shared is the foundation of trust." In the following cycles, Kale began to interact more with the other children and young scholars of the palace. At first, they were hesitant. Some whispered about his differences, his unusual appearance, and his strange habits. But Kale approached them with humility and curiosity, asking questions about their lives, their studies, and their interests. One young alien, Lyrian, was fascinated by Kale's perspective. "How do humans think about challenges?" he asked one afternoon. Kale shrugged. "We try to imagine every possible solution. We combine what we know with what we can imagine. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we keep trying." Lyrian considered this. "That is different from how we usually do things. We rely on patterns and rules. But maybe there is value in your way." Slowly, other children joined their conversations. Kale's approach was simple: observe, ask, and help. He encouraged collaboration, helping the young scholars solve puzzles and design experiments that blended human creativity with alien precision. Meanwhile, the palace scientists and strategists began to involve Kale in more significant projects. One experiment involved improving energy efficiency in the city's power grids. Kale noticed that small adjustments, inspired by human engineering techniques, could reduce energy loss and stabilize the system. The scientists were astonished. A human child had improved centuries of their technology with ideas so simple yet effective. Queen Lysera observed these developments quietly, her pride growing. She realized that Kale's presence was more than symbolic. He was changing the kingdom in subtle but profound ways. His human qualities, curiosity, empathy, and creativity were spreading through the palace, influencing how people thought, interacted, and solved problems. One evening, Valara invited Kale to help organize a meeting of the council and the young scholars. "Mother wants to see how you work with them," she explained. "It is important that the court sees collaboration across generations and species." Kale felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He had learned much, but this was different. These were leaders, scholars, and advisors, people with years of experience and authority. Could they accept ideas from a human child? The meeting began with introductions and cautious greetings. Kale spoke simply, asking questions about the kingdom's challenges and suggesting small improvements where he saw them. His ideas were not commands. They were possibilities, ways to explore problems from a new perspective. To everyone's surprise, the council listened. They asked questions, debated, and even tested his suggestions. Kale's insights into problem-solving, derived from human reasoning, sparked discussions that led to innovative approaches. The alien leaders began to see that combining human creativity with their own knowledge could produce results neither could achieve alone. During a break, Queen Lysera approached Kale. "You have done well today," she said. "You are teaching them as much as they are teaching you. This is the start of something remarkable." Kale nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. He had always wanted to help, to make a difference, and here he was, seeing that possibility take shape in real time. In the following days, Kale continued to build friendships with the young scholars and even some of the older advisors. They learned from him as much as he learned from them. Together, they explored new ways to enhance technology, improve defenses, and even strengthen communication channels with distant worlds. Kale's human perspective provided fresh solutions, reminding the aliens that innovation often comes from unexpected sources. One afternoon, Kale and Valara were walking through the palace gardens, where glowing plants swayed gently in artificial breezes. Kale paused to observe a particular plant that responded to sound. "On my world, we have plants that respond to touch," he said. "Maybe we can help these plants interact with more things." Valara considered this. "That is an interesting idea. Humans often see patterns we miss. You may be able to teach us something new." Kale smiled. "I just notice what is around me. Then I think of ways to try something different." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a group of scholars and young leaders. They had been experimenting with Kale's ideas, using sound and light to communicate with the garden plants. Slowly, the plants began to respond, creating patterns of colors and movements that were entirely new. Laughter and amazement filled the garden as the aliens realized that Kale's insights had unlocked new potential in even familiar parts of their world. Word of these experiments reached the Queen. She watched from a balcony as humans and aliens worked together, learning, laughing, and discovering. She realized that Kale's presence had begun to bridge not only species, but also generations, opening minds and hearts to possibilities beyond imagination. Kale began to understand that his role was not just to learn, but to inspire collaboration, empathy, and creativity. His small hands and human mind had created connections that technology and tradition alone could not. Even the most skeptical members of the court began to see him not as a human outsider, but as a valuable participant in their society. One evening, Valara and Kale stood on the palace balcony, looking out at the city illuminated by soft, shimmering lights. "Kale," she said, "you have done more than learn. You have shown that differences are strengths, that creativity and curiosity can change the world. You are helping us all see beyond what we thought possible." Kale looked up at the twin moons, feeling a sense of pride and purpose. "I want to keep helping," he said. "There is so much to learn and so much to try. I want to see what we can do together." Valara placed a hand on his shoulder. "And we will. But remember, the greatest discoveries come when we listen as much as we act. You have already begun to teach them this. You are human, and that is your strength." Queen Lysera joined them silently, her eyes reflecting the light of the moons. "Kale," she said softly, "you have reminded us that intelligence is not only measured in knowledge, but also in creativity, empathy, and courage. You have begun a new era here, one where humans and aliens can learn from each other, building a future brighter than we ever imagined." Kale felt warmth in his chest, a sense of belonging and responsibility. He understood that being human in this alien world was not a limitation, but a gift. His mind, his ideas, and his heart could make a difference, inspiring collaboration and innovation among people who had once doubted him. Over the following cycles, Kale continued to participate in palace projects, strategy sessions, and experiments. He became a bridge between generations, species, and disciplines. His perspective encouraged others to question old habits, explore new ideas, and embrace cooperation. Slowly but surely, the kingdom of Arendar began to change. Humans and aliens, young and old, began to see the universe through a shared lens of curiosity, creativity, and mutual respect. And as the twin moons cast silver light across the palace gardens, Kale stood among his friends, human and alien alike, realizing that he was no longer just a visitor. He was part of something larger, a community, a kingdom, and a future that could be shaped by imagination, courage, and collaboration. The palace, once a place of suspicion and doubt, now buzzed with energy and possibility. Kale's human mind had sparked inspiration, reminding everyone that even the smallest, Most unexpected beings could create remarkable change, and in the quiet moments, when the palace lights dimmed and the city below glimmered like a sea of stars, Kale looked out at the horizon and understood something profound. Being human in this vast universe was not a weakness. It was a strength, a gift, and a chance to make a difference beyond imagination. The days passed with remarkable speed, and the kingdom of Arendar had begun to transform. Kale, the human child who had arrived so unexpectedly, had become an inseparable part of the palace. His ideas, creativity, and courage had reshaped how the court viewed not only humans, but also their own traditions. The queen, the princess, and the council now recognized that Kel's presence had sparked something extraordinary, a beginning of a new era. Princess Valara walked through the palace corridors, Kale by her side. Together, they visited laboratories, strategy rooms, and classrooms. Everywhere they went, people turned to watch them, curiosity shining in their eyes. Kale moved confidently, sharing ideas, observing, and asking questions that challenged the experts to think in new ways. Even the oldest advisors, who had once been skeptical, now sought his input on critical matters. Queen Lysera observed quietly from her chambers, proud yet contemplative. Her daughter had returned with a human child, and that child had already proven his value beyond what anyone could have imagined. Kel's intelligence, ingenuity, and compassion were changing the palace from within. The queen realized that humans had qualities that their civilization had never fully appreciated: creativity, adaptability, and the courage to think differently. One morning, a message arrived from a distant star system. The inhabitants of that world had heard of Kel's presence and the changes happening in Arendar. They expressed interest in visiting, seeking to learn from the human child whose ideas had inspired so much. The court buzzed with excitement and trepidation. Hosting visitors from another civilization was always a delicate matter, but Kel's reputation had preceded him. Valara turned to Kale. "This is an opportunity," she said. "You can show them what humans can do, not through strength or technology alone, but through intelligence, creativity, and cooperation." Kale nodded, feeling both nervous and determined. "I'll do my best," he said simply. The visitors arrived in sleek ships that shimmered against the backdrop of space. Their delegation included scholars, scientists, and diplomats, all curious to witness the changes Kale had inspired. They were greeted by Queen Lysera, Princess Valara, and Kale himself, who stepped forward with quiet confidence. The first meeting took place in the Grand Council chamber, where Kale presented a demonstration of the projects he had been working on. He explained the adjustments he had made to the palace's energy systems, the collaborative experiments with young scholars, and the innovative methods he had suggested for problem-solving and communication. The visitors listened in awe. Kale spoke clearly and simply, using examples they could understand. He showed that even a human child, without advanced technology of his own, could create meaningful change through observation, creativity, and understanding. One visitor asked, "How did you come up with these ideas?" Kale thought for a moment. "I look at what is already here," he said. "I try to notice patterns, to imagine possibilities. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I never stop trying. And I ask questions, because questions help everyone learn more." The visitors were impressed. They saw in Kale not only a human child, but a symbol of what could happen when different civilizations shared knowledge, ideas, and perspectives. The Council of Arendar began to recognize that human ingenuity, combined with alien technology and wisdom, could create solutions far beyond what either could achieve alone. Over the following cycles, Kale continued to work closely with both the palace scholars and the visiting delegation. Together, they developed new systems for energy efficiency, transportation, and communication. Kale suggested methods that humans had used on their own planets and adapted them to Arendar's advanced technology. The results were extraordinary. Even the most skeptical members of the court had to acknowledge the child's contributions. One afternoon, Kale stood in the palace gardens, demonstrating a method to improve plant growth using light patterns and subtle energy pulses. The young scholars watched closely, following his instructions. Even the visiting delegation joined, marveling at how Kel's human perspective had created results they had never imagined. Princess Valara observed quietly. "Kale," she said, "you have shown them that humans are not just small and fragile. You have shown them that our minds, our curiosity, and our willingness to think differently can change the world." Kale smiled. "I just try to notice what is around me and think of ways to make it better. That is what humans do." Meanwhile, Queen Lysera reflected on the journey that had begun when her daughter returned with Kale. The palace had changed in more ways than anyone had anticipated. Walls of doubt and suspicion had crumbled, replaced by curiosity, respect, and collaboration. Humans and aliens were learning from each other, understanding each other, and building a shared future. Word of Kel's contribution spread beyond Arendar. Other star systems began to reach out, seeking collaboration, inspired by the idea that humans, even young ones, could bring fresh perspectives to complex challenges. The palace became a hub for interstellar learning, diplomacy, and innovation, with Kale at the heart of it all. One evening, Kale stood with Valara and Queen Lysera on the palace balcony, looking out at the city below and the stars above. The lights of the city glimmered like a field of jewels, reflecting the energy, creativity, and collaboration that had grown within the walls. "You have done more than anyone could have imagined," Valara said softly. "You have shown that humans can be more than visitors. They can be partners, teachers, and leaders in their own right." Kale looked at the twin moons, feeling the weight and the excitement of what lay ahead. "I want to keep helping," he said. "There is so much to learn, and so much we can do together." Queen Lysera placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes gentle yet full of pride. "Kale, you have reminded us that greatness comes in many forms. Strength is not only measured in power or technology, but in courage, curiosity, empathy, and the ability to inspire others. You have done all of these, and more." In the months that followed, Kale continued to inspire change. He helped design programs that encourage collaboration across species, age, and expertise. He worked with young scholars, scientists, diplomats, and even seasoned leaders, showing that every mind, no matter how small, had the potential to contribute to something greater. The palace became a center for interstellar cooperation. Humans and aliens shared knowledge, technology, and ideas. New projects were launched to improve travel between star systems, enhance communication networks, and explore distant planets together. Kel's human ingenuity and perspective continued to play a vital role in these advancements. Kale never lost his humility. He approached every challenge with curiosity, asking questions, observing carefully, and offering suggestions when he saw a possibility for improvement. He inspired others not through authority, but through example. His courage, intelligence, and kindness reminded everyone in the palace and soon across the galaxy that humans had a special capacity to think differently, adapt, and innovate. One evening, during a celebration of the kingdom's achievements, Queen Lysera addressed the assembly. Her eyes scanned the crowd, finally resting on Kale. "Today," she said, "we celebrate not just our accomplishments, but the spirit that has made them possible. A human child, far from his home, has reminded us that curiosity, courage, and creativity can change the world. He has inspired collaboration, innovation, and hope. Let this be a new era for Arendar and for all who seek to learn and grow together." The crowd erupted in applause, and Kale, standing beside Valara, felt a quiet pride. He knew that his journey was only beginning. The universe was vast, full of challenges and wonders, and he would continue to explore, learn, and inspire wherever he could. As the twin moons rose over the palace, casting their silver light across the city, Kale looked up at the stars. He thought of the countless worlds waiting to be discovered, the minds eager to learn, and the possibilities that lay ahead. He realized that being human was not a limitation, it was a gift. His mind, his heart, and his courage could shape the future, not just for Arendar, but for countless civilizations across the galaxy. Princess Valara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Kale," she said, "you have shown us all what humans can achieve. Together, we will continue to explore, learn, and build a future where all species can thrive. Kale smiled. I'm ready, he said. And so, the kingdom of Arendar entered a new Aryan era of understanding, cooperation, and shared exploration. The human child who had arrived so unexpectedly had shown that even the smallest beings could inspire greatness through intelligence, creativity, empathy, and courage. Kale had proven that humans could leave a lasting mark on the universe. The stars above shone brighter that night, as if acknowledging the new possibilities that had been born in the hearts of aliens and humans alike. Kale, Princess Valara, and Queen Lysera stood together, looking to the future. Ready to face whatever challenges and adventures awaited them, the kingdom was no longer the same. It was stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. And at its heart was a human child, whose curiosity and courage had ignited a spark that would guide generations to come.